is probably a lot worse than what I would normally see for a 5-year-old car. I had a go at polishing this car with a rotary machine badly. It was bad.
Oh my god. Hello and welcome to the channel. Jamie here from JAYP Cars. Today you join me at D.A.R detailing in Liskeard, Cornwall with the Audi S4. And as you can see, it's a little bit dirty, needs a bit of TLC. So that's what we're doing here today. Let's crack on. Good morning.
Hi Jamie, how are you?
How was it?
D.A.R detailing. Just filling your buckets up. Let's come and have a look at this lovely S4. Oh crikey. That's a little bit dirtier than when we last saw it. Been in the Cornish hedges, I see. So we're booked in this week for a chemical decontamination, full safe wash, paint correction and garage therapy ceramic coating. So that's the chemical range that we're going to be using on your S4. It's essentially going to be the garage therapy detail.
So Dave, what is the first thing to do for the car today? Because it is pretty dirty, I think it's fair to say.
So the first important step in safely washing your car is do a thorough pre-wash so that we're not rubbing and moving that ingrained dirt that's all got grip particles in it all around the car and causing further damage.
I think it's fair to say that they're holding a lot of mud.
The good thing about using this Crandall pressure washer with the quick release adapters is it's got a very wide spray pattern, so it's safe on the edges to the arches. You want to be careful if you're doing this with a standard car shoe or home pressure washer. So this is a garage therapy snow foam. We're mixing literally 50ml of garage therapy foam with about 450ml of plain water.
So we've just snow foamed and rinsed the car.
Yep.
So what is the purpose of that?
So that's removed most of the surface dirt and grime before we make contact with the paint. There's still a fairly light layer of traffic film from everyday driving, but that will come off in the contact wash. So most of the car is now clean, ready for contact with the paint. Next up is wheels. Okay, so this is just plain water. We've got 20ml of Garage Therapy 1 wheel shampoo, which we're going to dilute into the bucket for the contact wash on the wheels. And although they're reasonably soft on particularly black gloss wheels, they're much easier to scratch. So these soft wheel woolies are a lot safer. So this is an iron fallout from Garage Therapy. You can see the baked on iron actually on the brake disc reacting straight away. It bleeds purple or a reddish colour when it comes into contact with iron, and that starts to soften and dissolve the iron particles so that you can safely remove it from the surface of the wheel. So the beauty of this Garage Therapy iron oxide fallout is it's got a very long dwell time compared to other brands because it's quite a thick product. So particularly with the temperatures here today where it's quite warm, and being a black rim in a black car, we don't want it to dry on the surface, so this longer dwell time enables it to start to really soften the iron fallout to safely remove it from the vehicle.
So we've done all the wheels, we've gone around the badges as well and bits on the boot lid. So what are we going to do now? Because as you can see, it's a little bit dirty, isn't it? Still got traffic film on it.
Yeah, I think because it was so dirty this morning, Jamie, you've got a bit more than traffic film on it. Actually, the Garage Therapy snow foam has done a great job of removing the majority of the dirt and grime, but we're going to use Garage Therapy's decon shampoo, so it needs a heavier shampoo as part of the decontamination process. We're going to foam it again with the Decon shampoo as a lubricant, and then we've got Decon shampoo in the wash bucket for the contact wash.
Dave, I've just noticed in your buckets here, you've got grit guards in. How important are grit guards?
So these are really, really important. What these do in both the wash and the rinse bucket is it traps any ingrained dirt that you pull off the car, drops to the bottom of the bucket, and it traps it down the bottom, so you're not picking it back up onto your wash mitt.
So this is something that I should actually probably buy.
Without doubt, yeah.
Because I have been told by Roger from Garage Therapy multiple times to get grit guards.
Definitely.
And I still haven't done it.
Snow foam pre-wash as a bare minimum before you make contact, and then the 2-bucket wash method with grit guards in the bottom, without doubt, is the safest way to wash the vehicle. And we're using a Garage Therapy wash mitt here, which is a safe wash medium. I don't use sponges, chamois leathers, drying blades that are likely to cause damage to the paint. The purpose of foaming the car again, albeit with Garage Therapy Decon shampoo this time rather than the initial pre-wash snow foam, is just to add extra lubricity to the wash to avoid damage to the paint.
The more pile, the better?
Yeah, generally speaking, this is a microfiber wash mitt, so any dirt that you do get off the car, there's still some dirt there that we pulled off, that I put now into the rinse bucket. But what you want is to have a product, either a chenille or noodle wash mitt or a microfiber wash mitt, that's going to pull the contamination that you haven't removed with the pre-wash into the wash media and then safely remove it from the car before you rinse it.
Honeycomb grills must be your favourite.
It's quite therapeutic actually.
I've tried cleaning all of that before and I get so bored. So what's next then? So you've done the decon, and do you rate decon?
Amazing shampoo. So we're going to be polishing this and then ceramic coating it to correct the paint and then protect it. But decon shampoo using the right dilutions will strip old waxes and sealants so you can prepare the surface for a fresh coating.
So it's right back to basics.
Yeah. Next stage now is we're going to do a tar and glue remover. All these little dots here is tar spots that have been picked up from the road. We want to remove that safely from the paint before we start polishing. So we're going to use a tar and glue remover, which is a fairly heavy solvent, to essentially melt that tar off. Quite hot today, so we're only going to do a section of the tar at a time.
Some of it's already rubbing off.
It's starting to soften that tar. I have seen people suggesting that you remove tar with a clay bar. I don't agree with that. Clay barring is the last mechanical decontamination stage to pull off any final embedded contamination before polishing. You don't want to be rubbing a clay bar across the surface where there's tar and then moving that around the paint. You want to safely use the right chemical to dissolve tar rather than offering clay bar services solely for tar removal. See that the panel is completely clear of tar.
And this is the issue today, isn't it, with the heat?
Yes, it's drying, so we're going to do a small section at a time, and then we're going to rinse this solvent away so that we work clean on the car and stop the chemicals from drying on the paint.
Just baking into it.
Yeah. So we've done a tar and glue removal stage after the safe wash. This is part of the chemical decontamination stage now. So this is iron oxide, which removes fallout and embedded iron particles.
Well, as you can see, the car is looking infinitely better already, but there's still plenty more to go, isn't there, Dave?
Yes, that's right. So we've just done all the wet work now, chemical decontamination. We've just dried the car. We're using drying towels and warm force filtered air.
Is it important what drying towel you use, or?
Very much so. This one is actually called a twisted loop drying towel. So it's very soft on the paint. You can buy quite cheap drying towels. Chamois leathers for me are an absolute no-no. Drying blades are a no-no. They all have the ability to cause damage to the paint.
Okay, so you need something a bit more like this.
A bit softer.
Perfect. And then you've got the hose, which is to blow the air out of the wheels. Is that right?
Well, here you've still got drips coming down off the roof rails, so warm force filtered air will blow the water out of panel gaps, crevices around the lights, out of the wheels, out of the lug nuts, out of the door jambs, mirrors, just to properly dry the car before we get it inside.
So we have the car on the unit and we're going to do a paint inspection, have a little look around, but first we're going to take the lights and switch those off so that we can actually see with the torch a bit easier.
It essentially simulates the sun, so I'm looking at the surface defects that are on the clear coat, which is on top of the paint, that are commonly known as swirl marks. They're circular scratches that show around the light source, and they're generally caused through harsh or poor washing methods over the life of the vehicle. I'm also looking at a lot of the hedgerow scratches, which are always on cars down here in Cornwall on the passenger side, where cars have to pull into the lanes to let other cars through on single track roads, and the bushes hit certainly the front wing and often go right along the car. I'm also looking for other defects. There's one there. I'm going to put a bit of tape near that to remind me to come back and do a bit more work on it, but here is some bird lime or bird poo etching. I know this car is a loo car, so it's parked a lot down at the seafront in Loo. The seagulls tend to do their business, so here there's bird poo etching. When the car is in the sun and it's hot, black cars attract heat and get much hotter than lighter white, say white or silver cars. The moisture in that bird poo almost dissipates or dissolves instantly on the heat, and it leaves the acidic waste from the bird poo on the bonnet that then starts to etch through, and that's actually damaged the clear coat. But they've probably picked up a load of dirt and grit from the bottom part of the car without doing a foam or a proper citrus-based pre-wash, picked that up and carried on cleaning by rubbing all that dirt over the car. All that dirt has got grit particles in it that's caused all this scratching, and what we're going to be doing by machine polishing is polishing that lacquer to essentially exfoliate the lacquer to reveal new lacquer underneath and permanently remove. We're going to go for about, as part of our enhancement detail on this, about 85% plus correction on the paint. These are known as RDSs, random deeper scratches. So they're not surface defects caused by wash marring, they're deeper scratches caused by something else, but I'm just feeling to see if it's cut through the paint, which it hasn't, so they will be able to be polished out. In its past life has had a go at polishing this car with a rotary machine badly. Machine marring here, this whole area here is very dull compared to the rest of that door. In its past life, somebody's polished that with a rotary with a heavy cut compound and not finished the polishing set down properly. The good news is we can polish it all back. Random deep scratches coming down vertically on the door here, which is going to need a bit more work. Really strange scratching here in different directions, but all in straight lines. So I'm not sure what's happened here, whether that's a cat scratching or something's happened here, but again, it's not cut through, so we will be able to polish that out. But along that swage line, there's some scratches, and my suggestion is that somebody's dragged an air line or a pressure washer hose around the car that's been sat on the floor that's had grit on it, and it's rubbed and abraded that surface. Somebody's polished this back end. It's full of holograms and rotary induced buffer trails, but here there's a white lip on there, and that sadly is what's called burn through. So this has been polished too hard, and probably the pad's been angled and they've burnt through on the leading edge of that wheel arch there. We have got a touch-up stick, so we're going to touch that in as we go round. Usual estate cars, the load in the back with items going in and out has caused some scratching and scuffing on the back. Yeah, so that's actually gouged through. That defect there, if I slowly run my finger across it, you'll hear it click.
Yeah.
So that means that there's a ridge, and it's cut through the clear coat, the paint, the primer. That's right through to the plastic. That's plastic, so that's right through to the plastic.
So something's probably been dropped on it, or
something's been pulled out and something's caught it as it's come out.
Do they tend to be this scratched up, or?
It really depends how it's been cared for during its life. This is probably a lot worse than what I would normally see for a 5-year-old car, to be fair. Maintenance from a valeting and cleaning perspective, its previous owners have given it quite a hard life, I would say. My detailing and inspection light is bringing up holograms and buffer trails, as well as the swirl marks in the paint. But there's another quite significant burn through. It comes from there to there, so a good 5-6 inches of paint loss there, where literally somebody has polished it and burnt through the paint. There's some random deeper scratches along this swage line in a horizontal motion, so we're going to need to do, they're quite deep, some of them. Lots of marks around the handle, that's pretty standard, from sharp nails, rings. When people open the car, they've got rings on, or sometimes bracelets, watches. You'll always get a lot of scratches around the door handles. So yeah, plenty of work to do. German clear coat generally is quite hard compared to other brands. So anything in the Volkswagen and Audi group and BMW, generally speaking, German paint, German clear coat is quite tough. So it's hard polishing to remove defects, compared to the same defects in, say, Japanese cars, where the paint is very, very soft. Before we start polishing, we are going to do a test patch to look at the right pad polish combination to make sure we can improve the paint before we polish the rest of the car with the right combination for that paint.
I've just seen that there's a fair bit of lack of paint, isn't there, along here, with the stone chips on the
so all these are stone chips, lots and lots of stone chips. There's probably in excess of 100 stone chips on the front of this car. So this, Jamie, is a paint depth gauge. It measures the thickness of the paint on the panel, Bluetooth over to the phone, and in this case it's telling us that at this point that we're measuring, your panel is 88 microns thick. If we move the paint depth gauge, again there's a slight variance, like 89 microns, 90 microns.
But it's saying the paint layer is original, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a traffic light system. It's green, amber, red. Green is that the paint layer is original. Amber is generally, it's had a respray, it's had a second layer of paint, and red generally means that it's got a load of filler in the paint or in the panel, and it's masking some damage. That point on the bonnet there is 95 microns. To give you an indication, a 10-pound note thickness is 100 microns. So that's just under the thickness of a 10-pound note. And if you look here, that's made up. This is the panel that we have just taking a paint depth reading of. That 95 microns is made up of these three components in the total thickness of the paint. This component is your base coat, or what's known as primer. This is your colour coat, which is on your car black. And then the top section of the total paint thickness is your clear coat, or what's termed as the lacquer. And it's the lacquer that we're polishing. And all those little swirl marks that we've been looking at from harsh and poor washing methods over the life of the vehicle, we to cut the panel in half, a tiny little V's in the top of the clear coat, and we're going to correct that clear coat by machine polishing and removing some of the clear coat. Not enough to cause any lasting damage to the vehicle's integrity in terms of paint, but enough to safely remove the surface defects and the swirl marks.
Right, so on to the next stage now, which is the clay barring. So Dave, what will the clay bar do?
There is still some bonded contamination on this surface that we need to remove from the vehicle before we start machine polishing. So we use a lubricant to glide the clay over the surface to avoid damaging the paint. This is basically a mix of shampoo and water. We spray the panel and the clay bar, and we basically glide the clay, which is basically like a putty of almost like blue tack, but it's not blue tack. Do not use blue tack on your car, but it actually pulls the final contamination away from the paint. It feels
gritty,
sounds quite rough, yeah. And by claying the vehicle or the surface, you go from that sound to complete silence, which means that you pull the embedded contamination off of the clear coat or the lacquer and onto the clay. So whatever's on there is actually clear. It's not that dirty. But as we go through the rest of the vehicle, we'll see what else we can pull off. So now that is very smooth.
Yeah, a lot better when you compare it to the other side here.
You can still hear, I mean, I wouldn't normally do this, but we're going to correct this paint anyway, so...
It's just for show, isn't it? So we know the difference between. So what do you think's caused that on my bonnet?
I think that is interesting that the clay is not really going... not changing colour. There's a bit of dirt on it, but I've seen clay come back off the panel very, very dirty. I think this is salt air. That's because I know the car's parked in lieu, often right down on the seafront, and I think a lot of this is ingrained salt air from where it's parked a lot of the time that's embedded onto the clear coat and bonded, that we're now, hasn't been removed chemically through our chemical decontamination process, so we're removing it mechanically with the clay bar. I wouldn't normally create a hard tape line. So when I'm doing I'm doing this to show a 50-50, but because I'm removing clear coat here, I need to make sure that when I polish this section, that I give this a heavy cut, because there will be a line there.
Sure.
I normally don't do tape for 50-50s, but I know I'm going to polish it hard anyway, so it makes no difference.
You can really see the seagull shit there, can't you?
Yeah. That's why that's quite a good test panel or pad section.
There you go, that's done a good job of getting rid of that.
You can see a little bit of machine marring because it's a flat black paint. A little bit of shadowing or hazing, which a second stage of refining will bring out. But compared to the adjacent panels, most of the swirl marks and surface defects have gone in the first cut of polishing. So a little bit more polishing to do, but we're making reasonable progress there.
So there I can see a load.
Yeah.
And then you go around to this way a bit more, and significantly less.
A little bit hazy, a bit milky in that square that we've polished. So that's the damage that's been caused by removing the swirl marks and the surface defects in the first stage of polishing. What we do now is just go over that test panel, that test spot, with a second stage of polishing. This is a Lake Country black pad with Shoal Concepts M2 polish. Not Shoal Concepts M2, Kosh Chemi M2. So that second pass has reduced and removed a lot of the hazing that was caused by the first heavy cut, which is what's needed to remove the surface defects. Blow out some of these leaves as well.
It's well looked after, you know, this car. So as you can see, we've made quite a lot of progress on the S4 today. It came in extremely lagged and full of mud and dirt and lots of iron fallout and all this stuff, isn't it, Dave? It's just full of crap.
Contamination.
Contamination, that's a better word. And having had a look around the car, we can see there's quite a few areas for improvement. So I'm going to leave Dave to it with the machine polishing, because it's going to be the same as what you've just seen, but across the whole car. It's going to be quite a time-consuming thing. So there's no need for me to be here for the whole time. So I'll pop in again tomorrow and we'll have a look and see how Dave's getting on.
Hi, Jamie.
Hello.
There we go. The first stage of polishing is done. A couple of test areas to show you.
That looks a lot better than what it was.
We've still got a refining stage of polishing to go. Kept a couple of areas here to show you. So this area here hasn't yet been polished.
Okay, on the right hand side here.
Yeah. So all down there you can see the swirl marks and hazing and surface defects that were in the paint. Essentially this is when you dropped it off to me after we got the car washed and decontaminated. This side of the panel has had a first heavy cut, so a lot of the defects have now been removed. There's still another stage of polishing to go on there.
And obviously this was the side, wasn't it, where we had all the hedge scratches all the way down it.
This was the side. There's always, particularly on Cornish cars, passenger side is the side that takes the most amount of work in terms of polishing, because of all those hedgerow scratches. And then if we move to the back quarter panel, this section has had the first cut, but you can see the hazing that heavy cut inflicts to the paint. So it removes the damage that we want to improve, but in doing so inflicts its own level of damage in the form of pad marring from the machine work and some hazing. And then this back section has been refined, so you can really see the difference in the colour, can't you? You can see the difference between the first cut and then the second stage of polishing. Yeah, you can really see the difference in where the line is there. And then this was the spot around here, wasn't it, where we had the lines coming down. That's and then the round marks as well. Yeah. And that looks to have come out really well. Yeah, so these black piano gloss trims, Jamie, are really, really soft. They suffer damage very easily from poor washing. So you can see on the bottom part of this black piano gloss pillar the defects, and then the top part I've polished. So we've obviously still got this bottom section to correct. That's made quite a big difference actually, isn't it? Well, it's gone from a grey, milky, tired looking pillar to a lovely crisp black gloss. Dave, I also see that these wheels are looking absolutely spectacular. They're like, that's the second time they've been cleaned since I've had them on the car. So the alloys themselves are looking great, but also what you've put on the tyre here, which is this. Yep, this is Garage Therapy's tyre serum. So it's not a tyre dressing as such, it's a conditioner that actually penetrates the rubber on the wall of the tyre. We leave it about an hour between coats, but later on I'll be putting a second coat on, and that will actually nourish the tyre and really give it some good protection. Is that going to be infinitely better than, say, a cheaper one? Or yes, because this actually dries. There's no residue coming off on my hands because it's actually conditioning the rubber, whereas dressings sit on the surface, particularly silicone dressings that stay wet, and you get all the muck off on your hands. But also it
these cheaper ones, are they the ones that kind of they make this tyre will go like a yellowy?
Exactly that. Over time, they start to go brown where the tyre dressing sits on the surface and then the muck and the grime from the road attaches to it, sticks to it.
Soften that.
You can see it really well there. See that?
Mm.
There you go. It's massively better already, isn't it? Just with a quick go over.
He joined me outside of Dave's unit on this third day. He spent yesterday polishing the car and it should all be polished now, ready for coating. So we're going to go and see what he's been up to. Good afternoon.
Hey mate,
How was it?
I'm alright, you?
Yeah. How's it going? Hard work? Hard going?
It was bad,
Was it?
but there we are.
Looking so much better, isn't it?
It was almost grey, where the amount of scratches had robbed it from the light and the gloss.
And you must have been happy with it, because you sent me that video yesterday.
Yeah, it's come up lovely, isn't it? Yeah.
And I reckon as soon as you get that natural sunlight hit it, it's going to look even better.
Because, you know, these lights, there's no hiding in here with these lights. When you get it outside, it looks even, you know, completely different. It's phenomenal. So the car's now been polished, the paint has been corrected and refined. It's now time for laying down some ceramic coating. So we've chosen the Garage Therapy range with Cerberus as the base coat, and that's going to be topped tomorrow morning with Chimera, which is the hydrophobic top coat. A ceramic coating will help the car stay cleaner for longer, or put another way, it won't get dirty so quick because it provides a super slick surface so the dirt and grime won't bond to it as quickly as it would without a coating. But more importantly, it also protects the paint and the clear coat against UV damage, birdlime, staining, and road salts and harsh chemicals that are on the roads, and makes it a lot easier for you to wash it because this top coat particularly is super hydrophobic, which means it repels water. Okay, so time to apply the ceramic. We're going to apply a few drops on this applicator block on this suede applicator, and we work in a section of about 2 foot by 2 foot. You apply the product in a cross hatch fashion just to ensure that you've got even coverage up and down and then left and right. And now we just need to leave that for 1 to 2 minutes. We're at 20 degrees in the unit. So we just keep an eye on the temperature and wait for the initial flash point and curing. So what I've been looking for as it's doing its initial cure is a rainbowing effect in the ceramic, which is now appeared. So it's time to do the initial leveling. So I'm using a short pile microfiber cloth just to do the initial white and level the coating, and then use a separate clean cloth for the final buff. And essentially what we're doing here is just removing excess ceramic that we've applied to the surface, and the initial curing time enables enough of the product to cross-link and bond to the clear coat of the car, which then provides its protection and the durability.
Oh, it's been a few days since I've seen it out in the sun. Oh, that front end looks good. Oh my God. That looks better than the day I bought it. Oh, it's low on the front. Oh. Oh my God, it's actually sparkling in the sun. Holy. That's an unbelievable difference. Oh my God. That looks unbelievable in the sun. It's like glass. That is unbelievable, Dave. That is absolutely like mad. It's so slick.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's
It's literally glass.
garage therapy coatings.
Like, I knew they were good, but that's like next level. Are you happy with it?
Yeah, it looks.
Because I'm very happy with it.
Beautiful.
Considering what it came in as a few days ago, and it was horrific.
It was, yeah.
And I think we're going to talk about that in the next video, aren't we?
Yeah.
About just how horrific the paintwork actually was.
What a tough job it was.
But no, honestly, that looks absolutely. And even the alloys though, the alloys are sparkling. They didn't even look like that when I bought them new. They didn't sparkle like that. What did you use on the alloys?
Used Garage Therapy 1 wheel shampoo, plenty of lubricity because they're gloss black, try and mitigate any scratching on the surface of them. And then an iron oxide fallout remover to remove any embedded iron.
And then obviously you use the Garage Therapy tyre.
The serum, yeah,
Serum.
to condition the rubber rather than the dressing to protect.
Makes all the difference, doesn't it? What's the weirdest thing you've come across while detailing a car? Is there anything that you've come across and you've gone, what is that? Or why is that there?
I need to be a bit careful.